think Rick Barnes probably always has a milestone as he is one of the most winningest coaches in college basketball history. I don't know if wins against top 25 teams is on the docket, but Tennessee did so against Illinois. What were your thoughts over the weekend about the Vols? Tennessee's basketball team is really tough for me to put a finger on at this point. Caleb, what are your thoughts?
I actually think that Tennessee won Saturday, and I'm saying this for the first time all year. They finally addressed a concern that I had for them in March. And here's why. I'm going to repeat what I said is the issue with Tennessee. I have no doubt that in a 7-game series, they could beat any team in college basketball. I don't care. In a 7-game series, I'd pick them to win it all if the playoffs were that. But in a win and go home, my question was, when they run into a red hot shooting team where guys, I don't care how old school you think defense wins championships. It doesn't in college basketball. If a team is shooting the ball well, the greatest defensive team in history can't stop them. Those bad boy Pistons teams could not stop one of those random small colleges shoot if they're red hot shooting the ball. You just can't. It's how basketball works. The question is, can you match them offensively? And you have to match them with 3-point shooting of your own. And you also have to match them with an inside presence. One, just in case you're not as red hot shooting the ball, but two, to take pressure off your 3-point shooters. So this all came down to Jonas Aidoo. Against Illinois, a very good defensive team. They lead the nation in opponent 2-point percentage, and they're third in opponent effective field goal percentage, and they are 7th, I believe, in rebounds. So they're an elite interior team. They're top 25 in rebounding margin. So they win with elite interior defense. Jonas Aidoo dropped 14 points. He scored 10 points inside the circle, 4 offensive rebounds. That is what you need from Jonas Aidoo. I've been screaming it to the high heavens from the start, is you need that. He's your one big who can draw players away from underneath the basket, but can still score, but needed to prove he could still score underneath the basket. They tested him underneath the basket, and he did well.
Caleb, let me ask you this. Are you surprised he was able to do that? Do you think he can do that consistently? That's my question.
Yeah, I would think so, because playing big underneath the basket, that's not something that comes and goes. It's not like red hot shooting. You should be, if you can do it one time, you should be able to do it consistently. So now,
I would call that the Kevin McHale rule.
Right, exactly. So the question becomes, because what's been happening, Dave, over John Calipari figured this out last year, Dave, which was John Calipari said, you know what? We're going to sell out on the perimeter, and we're going to let Ross Plavchik try to score underneath because we don't think he can. We're going to play soft on him for the most part. And they did that. And Tennessee's had trouble ever since offensively. Jonas Aidoo, Illinois played that same style on Saturday, but they did have a big under the basket. Jonas Aidoo worked him the whole game. And that's a big deal because now teams have to pull off a little bit, because what you saw, Dave, what you saw in the second half, Illinois kind of spread out a little more, and Jonas Aidoo draw players away from the basket, and Zakai Ziegler and Dalton Connect can score on ISOs all the time. So you guard them one-on-one on the perimeter, they'll beat you driving to the basket every single time. And the key to have their 3-point shooting where it needs to be was for Jonas Aidoo to make sure that you had to respect him when he was under the circle, under the basket.
I am really, really interested to see Connect against a great defensive player. And I don't know that guy's out there in basketball right now. You can't hand check it all. You can't hand check it all at the NBA. You can't hand check really in college. I'm interested to see if there's an elite defender that can stop him one-on-one, because I think he's the type of scorer that can't be stopped one-on-one. The whole hope to contain him sort of thing. Like if he just gets 20, you feel like you've had a good night. I feel like he's that elite of a scorer. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. And he put that on display the other night. Illinois doesn't have one elite lockdown defender, but they play the greatest team defense in all of basketball. They're the best team defensive team in all of basketball. And Connect dropped 21 on him. And again, most of that was in the paint. And not only did he drop 21, but he was finding the right guys. He was 2 of 5 from 3. I mean, and yeah, no, I think you're right. And the thing I give a lot of praise to is most of Tennessee scoring on 2-pointers was finally underneath the basket, not the mid-range. You know, I'm so sick of Rick Barnes' teams loving the mid-range shot. And I'm very big on outside of connect, because sometimes that elite score like the Kobe, you let them take the mid-range shots because they're so good at it. But I don't want to see Zakai Ziegler, Santi Vescovi, Josiah-Jordan James. I don't want to see any of them shooting mid-range shots whatsoever. You either drive to the basket or you shoot a three or you pass it. One of the three, if you're those three. But I agree. Connect is that Tennessee is fully, completely constructed as a team now. Exactly what you want them to be. They have no weaknesses, and they showed that on Saturday. So the only question is exactly what you said. Will Jonas Aidoo keep that up?
Well, and the other question is, does Rick Barnes get conservative and wear his team down as the season goes on? I mean, that is the moral of the story. There's no reason to believe that Tennessee can't win 4 in a row and go into conference play riding that win streak. I mean, they've got Georgia Southern, who Connect might score 40 points against on Tuesday. They've got then NC State Saturday, Tarleton State, and Norfolk State before they play Ole Miss to open up SEC play. So SEC play on January the 6th. Is Tennessee going to go 4-0 in those games?
They should. If they don't go 4-0, that's a big concern. So, yeah, they'll go 4-0. They'll be 10-3 starting SEC play. And I've said it from the start. I'll say it again. I don't care what happens all I'm watching the regular season for is to see how this team is constructed and if they're capable of a March run based on how they're constructed. The success in the regular season for Rick Barnes, to me, does not matter anymore. I don't care. Nothing he does in the regular season is relevant anymore. He's at the point of where, remember LeBron after that finals meltdown against Dallas? And finally people were like, I don't care what you do in the regular season, LeBron. You got to do it in June. Nothing you do matters until June now. And then to his credit, he went and won back-to-back rings. Rick Barnes is at a point, nothing he does through February matters anymore.
True. NC State is the one that is hard to put a finger on. I mean, they beat Vanderbilt in that Vegas showdown. They got hammered by Ole Miss. It wouldn't stun me if Tennessee slipped up and didn't play their best game and lost to them, but they shouldn't. Right now, NC State, who the Vols play on Saturday after Georgia Southern, they are 6-2. They're 4-0 at home, but I mean, that really doesn't matter because it's going to be at TBA, brought to you by the produce section at Food City. If Tennessee doesn't go 4-0, I'm not going to raise the red flag, but I would raise the yellow flag or like a yellow card, perhaps in soccer. I mean, that would be disconcerting if they don't have this run. And let's remember, against the Georgia Southerns of the world, you don't have to play your guys for 40 minutes out there. You can rest some guys. They've got a long break. They should be fresh before they host NC State. There's no reason they shouldn't go 4-0 and head into the Ole Miss game on January the 6th, riding a pretty significant win streak.
Yeah, I agree. It's guys, don't forget that Zakai and Santiago Vescovi are still getting healthy. They're not fully back yet. So that's why I'm not raising the red flag if they go 3-1 right now. I think right now with Santi and honestly, this is what Tennessee needs is Santi and Zakai to have kind of these easier games outside of NC State to where they're a little bit better. They get a little bit better and a little bit more in the rhythm. So I wouldn't worry too much. But you're right. You raise a great point. I mean, I've seen it happen before, and Rick Barnes seems to have the Jim Harbaugh effect where he grinds you so hard you're mentally drained. But Dave, you were a fan of those Cowboys teams. Jimmy Johnson grinded players harder than anybody, and they responded really well to it.
Yeah, they held full contact practices the Thursday before the Super Bowl, which was just bizarre. I mean, nobody does that. The Bills didn't have full contact practices for all the playoffs. We saw how that worked out for them. Tennessee's losses are to Purdue, who was number 2 in the nation at the time, Kansas number 1, and then North Carolina, who was 17-16, depending on what polls you use. And
none while fully healthy.
Right. Not fully healthy. I mean, Tennessee could roll in there. I don't know if it's quietly or not, if the nation takes notice of them at 10-3, but 10-3 with 3 losses to ranked teams and 3 losses that you weren't 100% healthy for, that's not bad at all entering SEC play.
No, that's not bad at all. And also now they have a quality win with Illinois. So I think Tennessee, and quite honestly, Syracuse isn't a bad win. It's not Syracuse of old, but it's still a Power 5 win away from home, and that matters in college basketball, a game like that. So I think Tennessee will have a lot to be happy about entering SEC play. SEC play is going to be rough because they're a little bit better this year. Kentucky's Kentucky, Arkansas, and Alabama obviously have great coaches, and Ole Miss is making an early splash. So just watch out.